one about form. In the HTML language, we can also make a form for submit our information from one website to another website. Different types of forms are used in the life. For example, in the educational place, we submit a form. In that form, our full information is included related to our interest or related to our education, profession, and the future planning. So these are the main purpose of form for send our full information from one website to another website. The main purpose of HTML form to collect the user input. It contains form elements. In the form, different types of elements are used to make a form very beneficial and usable. Form elements are different types of input elements. In the form, different types of input elements are included which display the full information about the user. You can use the checkbox, radio buttons, etc. So you can see that in the form different types of elements are included. For example, the checkbox, radio button, submit button, and the main box. So these are the input elements in the form. So we can use these elements according to our requirement. The syntax of form is by using the form pair tag. Form is a pair tag, and before the ending of the form tag, we can add some form elements which describe our information very politely. HTML input element is the main element of the form. Without using these elements, a form cannot be made because most of the information are included in the input elements. As you can see that in the input element, different types of attributes are used according to their requirement. For example, if you want to write the text, then you can use the text input. The type of the input must be text. And if you want a radio button or a radio text, then you can use the input type radio button. And at the last, not least, if you want submit button or submit any information, then the input type must be submit button. So these are some types of the input elements. Further, we can discuss these types very clearly. Then you can become sure that what is the input element and how we can use these elements in the form. HTML text input is the first type of input element. If you want to add some text in the form, then you can specify the type of the input is text. It define a one-line input field for text input. The name attribute specify the name of an input element. In the input element, you can give the type of the input and the name of the input, and you can also give the placeholder. Placeholder means suppose you want to write the password of that box, then you can give the name of the form or input is a password. So these all types are used in the input element. The value attribute specify the initial value for an input field. If you want to specify the first value or the initial value in that box, then you can also specify the value of the input in that box. So these are all the type, name and value are described in the input element. Let's start to see the example of text input. Then I hope you will make sure what is the input element and how we define the type, name and value in the input element. You can see that we use a pair tag form, and in the input element we give the type is text, and the name of the input element is first name, and the value is Neha. So you can see that if we give the value of another person like a Neha, then this is alphabetically letters. We can't specify another numerically thing in the place of the text. So this is the main example of the input element. We can also give the another name, but Make sure that name must be in the alphabetically letter, not in the another language like numerically Roman. So these are not the another type of text. So if you give the type of the input is text, then you can also use the text rather than the images or the another attribute in the input element. Suppose you want to give the message box in the form, then you can also use the text area in the form. The example is it define a multiple input field. You was remember that in the input type text we can write the text in a limited alphabets, but if you give the text in a very lot of words, if you want a long message, then you can use the text area name. As you can see that I define form pair tag, and in the form I use a text area, and the name of the text area is message, and I define the rows and columns of the message box. So in that message box you can write a long message rather than you use the input type text. So this is the main difference of the input type text or the text area. So according to the requirement you can use the input type or the text area in your form. In the form some conditions are come. In that conditions we have to choose only one option from the form, from the multiple choices. So in that type of conditions we can use the radio button. For example, it defines a multiple input field. If you have different types of choices and you have to choose only one, then you can use the radio button. For example, I use the form pair tag, and I have three options in which I have to choose only one, and I can't use only one. You can see that I use a input type radio, and name of the input is gender, and the value is male. Similarly like female and others. Suppose you have a form and you have to select only one option from the female, male and others. So it's naturally you can use only one. You can choose only one. So in these types of conditions, we use the radio buttons in our form. Before ending this chapter, I have to specify or display all the input elements or with the example or the output. Then you will become sure what is the input elements and how it works and what will be you give or get after write these types of elements in your form. You can see that I collect all the input elements that I was discussed in that video. So in the first, I use a input type text, name, first name, and the value given by Neha. Same is last name, value is Verma. Another is a email. If you want to specify the email box in your form, then you can give the type of the input is email, and you can specify the name of the input is email, and also you can give the value of the email. So further I describe the radio button. So you can see that I give different types of input elements in a form. Now we see the output of these types of input elements in our web page. As you can see the output of the form which we was write in our web page. This is the output of the web page. You can see that the name of the first input is first name, then we show the box. In that box we can write our first name. Similarly as the last name, we can write our last name, same as our email ID. In the radio button we have the two choice in which we have to choose only one option. So this is enough about the radio button, input type text and the other types. In the further videos we will discuss the more input elements which is used in the form.